This episode is brought to you by the Old Dominion Athletic Foundation. Because of you, we create winners in the classroom, in athletic competition, and in life. Become a member today.
Monarch Nation, we are back with the Monarchist Basketball Show. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Aaron, and we're blessed to talk to Coach Mike Jones today. How are you doing today, Coach?
Doing okay. Busy times, but doing okay.
All right, so we're at the end of the season. We start talking about off-season preparations, but let's kind of recap this season as a whole, do an overview. I'll let you start off. You can kick us off here.
Yeah, went into the season with a lot of pretty lofty expectations. We were excited about our roster and what we were going to be able to do with it, and we challenged ourselves with a incredibly tough non-conference schedule, with the plan being that we would be preparing ourselves to, first of all, win some of those games, but then also to be ready to go through the gauntlet of what the Sun Belt Conference season would be. And, that was the plan. That's what we thought. Obviously, it did not go that way. A lot of soul searching on our end since the season has ended and trying to figure out what changes need to be made, where we need to refocus and recalibrate. But, ultimately just disappointed in, where we finished. Went down to Pensacola with some momentum from, last regular season win on the road. And, we get, the first game under our belts, and, we fought as hard as we could in that second game there to a team that wound up making it to the championship game. So, we fought and fought and fought, but obviously this year was not the year any of us expected to have. And, it's not good enough, not to the standard that should be what Old Dominion basketball is. And it's ever since we went recruiting straight from Pensacola to try to shore up spots that we know we're going to need. So before we even landed back here in Norfolk, we had gotten out to see a couple of guys. So we're working.
All right, let's take this one bite at a time. So, one of the first things that you just mentioned was talking about a challenging schedule right off the bat, challenging non-conference schedule. One of which you didn't have a choice was Miami, Ohio. Y'all knew how good Miami was, but I don't think much of the country knew how good they were going to turn out to be over the year. From a scheduling perspective and scheduling philosophy, Mike and I know how difficult that is for you guys to be able to pull that together. Who is willing to play, who's not willing to play. After last year and this year of building that non-conference schedule, are there things that you might look to do differently going forward? Is that kind of the model, or what are we looking at going forward?
Definitely the schedule was something that I would say we will learn a great deal from, what we did this year going forward. We will make changes to our approach and, how we look at it. This year, I won't say 100% intentionally, but we knew we were going to play a pretty decent number of road games. Having them strung together the way they were, not necessarily what we wanted, but that's kind of the way the calendar worked out when we could get the games, especially the bye games where we get bought. Yeah, it won't be that way next year. Some of these teams are returning to us, so we get to play them here. So looking forward to that. But just our overall approach to our non-conference schedule definitely requires adjusting, and we are doing that. We'll play more home games next year for sure.
Well, that's good to hear. Home games are always fun. Let's talk about. I don't know where to go from here. This is a tough discussion to have. I don't know, Aaron. If you want to ask another question, you can.
Yeah. When we talked before the season, like you just mentioned, Mike, there were lofty expectations, and I think the fans were set for hoping that there would be extended play into March. We all hope that. Obviously, it didn't play out that well, that way. After having 2 seasons with Sunbelt basketball, been able to evaluate the type of basketball that's played in the Sun Belt and the positions that may or may not have more value than others and where you need bodies. So I know for a fact this year at the 4, things didn't play out the way that you wanted to play. Steph getting injured, and then Drew wasn't on the floor as much as maybe you hoped there. What have you and the staff learned over the last 2 years with regards to what you're looking in roster construction to compete first and foremost in the Sun Belt, because you got to win there to get to the tournament?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Aaron. I do think that part of everything has to be kind of focused on last offseason, what our goals were going into the offseason with regard to, our schedule and our roster. We've talked about schedule already. I do feel like for what we wanted to accomplish in terms of our roster last summer, the tangible things, the big blocks that go into the formula, like we wanted to get older and we wanted to be more skilled or better shooting, because we felt like year 1, we were very limited in terms of experience, 1, because we had 7 freshmen, 9 if you count the walk-ons. And then 2, we were very limited offensively with so much of the pressure being put on one player to shoot the ball. It was either, Rob was going to shoot it and Sean was going to rebound it. And you had Jaden Johnson, who was very good defensively and, touch paint, but we were limited offensively in year 1. We felt handcuffed a little bit. We went out to put a roster together that we would not be handcuffed, that we would have multiple shooters, that we would have the ability to score the ball. We did that. We got older. We brought in a lot of seniors, a lot of guys in their last year of college, and the connection there didn't necessarily click the way we thought it would with, hey, this is these guys' last opportunity. There's going to be the continuity that you don't have because of the roster turnover. You will get. The trade-off is just the thought process of, this is our last chance to do this. And that didn't necessarily jive the way we thought it would. But what we went into the last offseason to accomplish in terms of putting a roster together that we were not going to be so handcuffed offensively, we were able to do that. Our issues this year were on the other end of the floor. We were not as good defensively as we needed to be. And going into this offseason, the biggest thing is we don't want to sacrifice the cosmic improvements we made on the offensive end of the floor, but we have to get better on the defensive floor, end of the floor. And so that is what we're looking to do this offseason. And as you mentioned, like having 2 years of Sun Belt Conference play under our belt and kind of knowing what works, what doesn't work, the different styles and things like that. Again, I think, we do have our marching orders in terms of putting a roster together that will, give us a chance this coming season.
All right, so defense and scoring. It can be hard to find those right fits that can do those things, because so many lead scorers are told not to defend so they stay out of foul trouble, right?
Yes.
So I wonder how you can find those scorers that are willing to defend and aren't worried about their foul trouble.
Again, it's like we're leaving no stone unturned. Coach Nadeau and I just got back from Kansas at the JUCO national championships, and watching film of kids is one thing, but actually sitting courtside and watching them in person, like so many things, like, somebody's listed as 6'6", you see them in person, they're only 6'3". Somebody's listed at 200 pounds, you see them in person, and, maybe they're 180 pounds. But like some of the things that you maybe don't see, like the camera on TV, it's going to follow the basketball. Well, defense, like you're playing defense whether your guy has the ball or not. And standing courtside or sitting courtside, you're able to watch everything. You're able to watch and hear and just, truly get a sense of who's locked in on that end of the floor. And just the value in being able to do that and see them on the other end of the floor. Can he shoot? You know, you're there 30 minutes before tip off to watch the way he warms up. To, you know, maybe in his offense today, he's not supposed to shoot 3-pointers, but you need to watch the young man shooting for him to be able to tell, you know, does he have good form? Does he have good touch? And there's just so many parts to what that has to be in terms of what your eyes see. You know, film only does so much. Being able to see these guys in person, I think, was incredibly valuable to us this past week. And going forward, obviously, you won't the Division One guys that are going to portal unless we played against them. We won't have had the opportunity to see them in person. So you do have to rely on film, and you do have to rely on talking to people in this business that you trust about their work ethic, about where their limitations are. And, you know, honestly, does this young man care about winning enough to guard? Does this young man care about winning enough to really, you know, put himself and his body on the line? And these are things that there's no exact science to be able to do it, but you have to find a way to get that information.
So I want to ask a follow up to that relationship part of the discussion. So obviously, to tape, seeing them live, you kind of understand what kind of player they are, but understanding how they are off the court, in practice, in meeting rooms, is huge,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're trying to build a roster in such a short period of time. So how do you balance out those relationships with knowing that some people are going to tell you exactly what you want to hear, and some are going to just tell you the honest truth?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, there's no exact science to it. There's some people that, you know what, you burn me once, I'm probably not coming back to you. There's another one that, you know what, the last 3 times I've come to you, you've been spot on. So, you know, I trust your word. And then everything in between. You get some, you know, I might see a young man who I don't know anyone that's coached him. So I get them on the phone. I don't know if you have a track record of being accurate in your description of the player that you clearly are motivated to help move on to the next level. So it's a crapshoot. But again, in terms of relationships, I do feel like because of my history, like I do have, like, there's not one metropolitan area in this country that I can't pick up the phone and call someone that I do trust and basically have them help me. You know, if I'm recruiting a kid out of Texas, you know, I've got 7 different people in Texas that I trust. The young man I may be recruiting isn't necessarily somebody that played for any of those 7, but hey, can you put me in touch with somebody that I can trust? Will give me the lowdown on this young man and what he's going to be able to bring to the table. It is not an exact science. It is not something that's foolproof, but you know, I like the network that we have, and we just got to utilize that to the best of our ability.
So just to piggyback on that one too, this is more of just curiosity for myself. So, like you were just mentioning, in Texas, you've got 7 guys you can call. Is it sometimes perhaps more important to talk to a coach who's coached against someone that you're potentially recruiting and that different perspective from their observations, or is there limited value in that?
It depends. It depends. I mean, I've talked to a coach before, so let's just say Mike, you and Aaron are both coaches in St. Louis, and there's this kid in St. Louis that I would like to recruit. Neither one of you coach him. So, Mike, I may call you and say, hey, can you tell me about this Mike Jones kid that plays at such and such high school in St. Louis? And Mike, you might be like, yeah, like, you know, we played them twice this year. And, you know, I just think he does this. I think he does that. And you give me an honest assessment. Aaron, you may have a kid that is, in your mind, as good as Mike Jones. So you're going to tell me everything that Mike Jones does negatively. And then at the end of the conversation, be like, hey, but I do have this kid on my team that you should look at. And again, there is no blanket carbon copy, like this is what everybody does. This is where those relationships do matter. I also don't think you can call one person and take what that one person says and have that be the law. Like, you call multiple people and you'll get a true sense of what's real, what's not real, what's true, what's not true, and just having the ability to decipher what is important to you, but then also like who is being real with you. Again, it's not the easiest process, but I mean, this is what the game is.
And then before moving off of Kansas, this in the last couple years, the football guys have had a lot of success with their junior college recruiting for various reasons. Um, do you find that some of the junior college student athletes, you know, do they, for most of them, the experience is not as plush as what they may have if you're
Mhm.
recruiting a guy who's at a P4 level who's looking for an opportunity? Do you find that there's sometimes perhaps better teammates, or that they appreciate the facilities that you have at Old Dominion? Is it a different type of kind of student athlete?
I definitely think there's differences. I do want to make sure that we're clear. So in the 2 years we've been here, we have not recruited nor signed a JUCO player. We haven't recruited or signed a non-Division I player other than an international young man, in Vitautas a year ago. We haven't been through this experience yet. Now, obviously, we all have coached a little bit of everywhere, so we've had other experiences. Um, it's not one way. There's A, there's Z, and then there's 24 letters in between. There can be so many different ways that goes. Some of those young men are incredibly hungry. After seeing guys this weekend, I'm reaching out to a couple of guys that I liked, and I'm sending them slides from, this is our practice facility, this is our arena, this is these are the apartments that our guys stay in. Hey, we have this beautiful new student athlete dining hall. This is what it looks like. These are pictures. And some of the guys that you communicate with, it's like, oh yeah, coach, that's nice. Other guys are like, oh my gosh, wow, that is amazing. And again, there's so many layers to that. Some of these guys are going to be very appreciative to just play in front of a fan base like we have. Some of these guys are going to be very appreciative of having access to a gym 24 hours a day. Some of these guys are going to be very appreciative of, what? We're not on 12-hour bus rides. We're like, there's so many different aspects that are maybe different at our level than it is at the level they're coming from. And you do want young men that appreciate everything that this university and this basketball program provides for them. You do want young men that love that and want to honor that with performance. There's no way to tell beforehand, though, who is and who isn't, though. Like there's just no way. You hope you recruit young men of character, young men of work ethic, and it translates. You hope you recruit enough of those that becomes like the culture of your program, and that guys coming in could be teetering on the fence of work ethic and not having a work ethic, but because they're around so many guys with a work ethic, they teeter to or fall to that side. You don't want it going the other way.
All right, so I'm going to stick on this recruiting angle and go a little bit different. So, growing up, New York was known for point guards, right? California has the jumpers, the guys that can just jump out of the gym. Memphis has the gritty defensive players. Like, are you seeing when you travel around the country that still exists where you have very definitive styles of basketball in each part of the country? Or is it getting to be more like common, like
So,
the style of play?
so another great question. So, Mike, I think the thing that you see nowadays is just like the rest of the country, everything is so transient. Like I might go see a kid that's playing in New York, but he lives and grew up in Chicago. I go to one of the schools in Florida. Those kids come from all over the place. So, how long have they been in Florida? Is their game starting to adapt to the way Florida plays basketball? Or this New York point guard, does he still have that flair for ball handling? And does the Atlanta kid that can run and jump is big and strong, but is still a great athlete? The Texas kid that's just a hard-nosed kid, the Midwest kid that can really shoot. Like, everything is so transient, and guys come from all over the places at these different places. Again, this past week, these junior college players come from all over the place. So whereas their city that they're playing in may be this or that, it doesn't necessarily mean that they've acclimated to whatever that is. They're bringing from all over the country, like whatever they come with. So to answer your question, yes and no. You do still see some of those specific attributes to a specific area, but because everybody's coming from a little bit of everywhere, it's not always going to be something that's consistent throughout.
So we know some of the guys are moving on. Other guys we don't know yet. So we don't know, especially Mike and I don't know.
Well, let me say this,
Who's-
Aaron. We know, but we're not going to say anything until that portal closes.
Yes, because
No.
anything can change.
Yes, and it is what it is. That portal closes. It opens April 7th, closes April 21st. Until April 21st, I am not going to, anything can happen. So we will hold tight until then.
So once that portal closes, what do things look like for you and the rest of your coaches?
So once the portal closes, it's all right. We have this many spots open on our roster, and this is how we're going to fill them. And again, we know now for the most part, so we're already working on that. But in terms of, hey, we know we're going to need this. We know we're going to need that. We graduate so many seniors that will not be back. We have a couple of guys that could return that will not be returning. Like the way that goes, we will definitely be in a situation where we're out here recruiting, and one of the draws is the opportunity. And there's a tremendous amount of opportunity that has been vacated on our roster. As we're going to talk to, these junior college players or non-Division I players, whether it be whatever level they're coming from, or once that portal opens and we're talking to Division I players that have gone in the portal, like the one thing that we have to sell amongst many things is the opportunity to compete and compete for minutes immediately once you touch down here. And I think that's one of the most important things in terms of what we are able to pitch to potential student athletes.
All right. So going into year 3, your third full off season as the head coach of Old Dominion, how have you changed as a coach? Like I guess if you picked one thing, how have you changed as a coach in those 3 years?
The last 2 years have been incredibly humbling. That's a tough one to answer. There's plenty. Some of that is not necessarily for the Monarchists podcast, but there's been some growth. There's been some, just being self-aware, I think is such an underrated trait. Understanding what works and what doesn't work. The players change, so that needle moves with every change in your roster. But I've learned a lot, and I know I'm not necessarily giving you the best answer in the world, but I've learned a lot, and I will continue to learn, and I will adapt. The game is constantly changing, so you adjusting is required, but I will adapt, and I am adapting.
So as the game changes and evolves, let's just be Sun Belt specific. So over the 2 years that you've seen, what kind of evolvement have you seen within the Sun Belt that sticks out in your mind?
Well, again, I think one of the unique things about the Sun Belt is, as physical a league as we are, like just the varied styles in the league, which is one of the things I think makes the league great. That we don't all play the same way. You have teams that press, you have teams that want to play half court. South Alabama plays zone 100% of the time. You have teams that will never play a possession of zone. You have teams that want to shoot multiple threes. You have teams that want to, like, everything they do is pick and roll. You have teams that you know what, I'm going to throw this ball on the block. And you got teams that don't play a post man at all. There's just so much variety in our league. I'm so like it makes it fun because there's no carbon copy game plan or approach or anything like that. Like you have to adjust. So with that, what works for us? We want to be who we are. We want to play to our roster. And you know what? From year to year, that may have to change. I am hoping that we get to a point where it won't have to change from year to year, and our identity is our identity. But I mean, you've got to coach to your roster and what your players are. And as we pursue being able to be consistent in what we do, pursue being traditionally as good as we were, and continue to improve offensively, as we pursue the improvement that is required for us to be able to compete on the defensive end, but then to make that a consistent thing, we will have our own identity, and others will have to, have some heartburn preparing for us too. It's fun. The variety in our league is unique, and I love it. I love it.
That variety might explain the razor thin margin between like first and 11th place.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's
A team could look like the best team in the league one night and then lose to anybody the next.
yeah. I mean, look at it this way: Marshall finished second, played their first tournament game on Sunday. Arkansas State finished seventh, had the same exact conference record that Marshall played, but their first game was on Thursday. Like that's, Thursday, Sunday, like that's crazy. You had the same record. You had the same exact record. And you guys are fighting and clawing and everything like that. And I mean, that is literally how close our league is. It very easily could have been a 7-way tie for first place if Troy does not win the last game of the season. It would have been a 7-way tie for first place. Like, I don't know another league where that's even possible, let alone almost happens.
All right, Mike, I'm going to ask you one more question and let you get out of here. So it is the off season. Oh, Aaron's got another one. So this won't be the last question. But here's my last question is it's the off season. We know that college basketball and conferences consider rule changes in the off season, whether it's the portal or on the court or if it's transferring. What rule would you recommend this off season to make college basketball better?
Okay, you asked me this last year, and I forget what my answer was, but I definitely have a different answer this year. So there's two things for sure. One is, and I haven't heard many people talk about it, but I prayed, like, this is not me blaming officiating for anything, but we had 3 separate incidents in the second half of our season this year where by rule there was a goaltend against us, and none of the 3 were called. And the rule is, unless it's called, it can't be reviewed. I don't like that rule. The first time it happened, we lost the game in a very close game. That 2 points literally would have been a huge difference in whether or not we had a chance to win that game. I don't like the fact that if the referee does not call it, that it cannot be reviewed. One of the games, we actually won the game, but it happened so late in the game. We don't get the goaltend called. They get the ball and they push it down the court and we foul. So just think of what that did. We don't get 2 points. One of our best players now has his 4th foul, and we either have to take him out or he has to play differently this last minute and 40 seconds or whatever it was. Like, it just literally changes the whole dynamic of everything. And it's not fair, because by rule, if the ball touches the backboard and you then block it, it is a goaltend. We're not talking about was the ball on the way down or anything like that. We're literally talking about, did that ball touch the glass and then you blocked it after? All 3 examples were the ball touched the glass, and every replay showed it. But I'm not allowed as a coach to point to the replay because that's supposed to be an automatic technical foul. and then the referees, again, unless they call it, they can't review it. I don't think that's a good rule.
So here's my
I think
follow-up.
it's too costly.
If you're
So-
reviewing an out of bounds play, and they missed a foul call on that play, would your scenario allow them to call that foul that they missed, even though they're reviewing who's out of bounds on?
The rules, like, man, there's so many different. I mean, you can take this and manipulate it a bunch of different ways.
Right.
Like, I just wanted two points, man. Like, we worked hard. Like, you and I, the three of us, have already spoken about how many close games we played in. Those 2 points mean everything. They mean everything. And like, it just impacts so much. Like, it's not fair. It's not fair. So that's one. And then I actually have a second one. I firmly believe, and this will never happen, so this is just wishful thinking on my part, but I firmly believe that I should get as many challenges as I am right. So you get 1 challenge a game. If you use it and you're correct, you get a second one, but that's your limit. I believe if I challenge a second time and I'm correct again, I should get another challenge, because I'm not the one making the mistake. You're the one making the mistake. So don't punish me because you've made a mistake. We've alerted you to the mistake. You agree that you've made a mistake. You change and correct the mistake. I should not be limited in how many times I can do that. What should happen is you should stop making the mistake. And then there's nothing for me to challenge. And again, I am not on here bashing officials, but I do believe that is a rule that I don't think will ever change, but it should. It should. If you're wrong, and again, I'm not over there screaming and cursing at you or anything like that, but you're wrong. Hey, that ball was not out of bounds on us. If that happens with 13 minutes left in the game,
yeah,
and I get to keep my challenge,
makes
then
sense.
it happens again at 6 minutes left in the game. And so now I'm done. Even though I might have timeouts left, I'm done with my challenges. Well, you know what? If it happens with 90 seconds left in the game, I still should be able to challenge that because I've been right the other 2 times.
makes
And
sense.
if the NCAA is too worried about slowing down games, they need to address officials making mistakes, not coaches having too many challenges.
Right.
Or they need to
I'm
put someone
100%.
or they need to put someone in the booth that reviews it ahead of time so they can tell them, hey, it was wrong.
Right.
They need to speed
Agreed.
up that process because the breaks are crazy. But I also, if I could tell refs anything, they need to get more predictable on how they're calling games, because we've seen it throughout this season where early in the game they're calling chippy stuff, then all of a sudden they're not calling anything, and then out of nowhere
Or vice versa.
they just switch back on where they're calling everything. It's like, how can a player play defense when they don't know how it's going to be called? Like,
yeah, I don't disagree with you, Mike, but
Yeah.
to be honest with you, again, I don't think any official comes into it like, hey, we're against this team, we're for that team.
oh,
Like,
I'm
no
not.
matter what. No, but what I'm saying is no matter what
Yeah.
happens, that usually is even.
Right.
They're letting us
Oh.
play. They're letting them play. They're not letting us play, and they're calling touch fouls. They're calling touch fouls on them. They go back to letting us beat the crap out of each other, where they're letting them beat the crap out of us too. Like, I think that's, even though it's inconsistent, it's consistent because it goes both ways.
I understand that. I'm just saying, as a fan, it is hard to watch.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. It's hard to coach too. I mean, it's like, I'm not dismissing your point. I do want to make sure that, again, the officials have a really tough job. They have a really tough job, especially in our league.
I'd prefer
I think they have an incredibly tough job in our league because
I'd prefer they just let them play until the last couple minutes of the game, and then they can call the legit fouls.
I prefer they call it the same way from the jump ball to the final buzzer. Like, I think it should be consistent throughout. You find out pretty early on what the day is going to be like. First media, are they letting us, is this a slobber knocker or is this a hands off? and and you play with that being your mindset from that point on.
Fair enough.
And man, I feel like I should have elbowed my way in before that question because that would have been a good way to end. But you know what? I'm going to ask this last one anyways. And I think it's a good segue with the word slobber knocker. I love that. I'm a big fight fan, especially MMA, and styles make fights. And you were talking a little bit earlier about one of the things that makes coaching in the Sun Belt so much of a challenge and fun is so many different styles.
Mhm.
So going back to what we were talking about earlier about roster construction, how do you build a roster that you feel can be super effective to win a conference that can be effective against so many different styles?
Again, great question. I want to make sure that I'm clear in, I know the way we want to play, and we want to recruit to play that way. You can look at Kyle and what he was able to do for the 2 years he was with us. And that should give you at least some idea of what I would like for our center to be. Big, strong, run and jump athlete that can pick and roll and you throw the lobs, that can guard differently, hopefully without fouling. But you have things that identify with the way you want to play. And as we recruit and as we scout and as we evaluate and as we kind of tier, this guy fits us perfectly. This guy fits us too, but maybe this little thing. This guy, if he's our point guard, we've got to maybe adjust the way we want to play. And there's so many things that go along with that. I value versatility. I value, because of a league like the Sun Belt, and one game, you know what? We can press this team. The next game, you know what? We can't press. They're way too fast. We cannot press this team. We need to be able to go back. You know what? This team doesn't shoot it that well. We need to be able to play a defense that packs it in a little bit more. Hey, this is a team that doesn't handle, physicality and pressure too well. So we need to extend our defense a little bit. Hey, this is a team that doesn't guard that well. So we need to be able to beat them off the dribble and get paint touches and play from there. Hey, this is a team that it's going to be really hard. App State, you can't really drive the basket that much against them. You've got to have guys that can make shots. There's so many things. And so what I'd like to say we do is we recruit versatility that gives us the ability to play the different ways. Sometimes we do that better than others. Again, going into this offseason, we are looking for guys that will be able to play multiple different ways, but to not be beholden to, hey, these are only guys that can do this. These are only guys that can do that. Hey, when we play this team, you're playing, but when we play that team, you're not going to be that effective. You guys are like, I want guys that can do a little bit of everything and do it well. When we get this thing right, we're going to be a team that, you know what, all the other teams are going to be adjusting to us. And hey, we're coming at you 100 miles per hour every single game because this is the roster we've put together. I hope that's 25, 26, 26, 27. I really hope that that's who we are. And that's what we're looking to do. That's the roster we're looking to put together, that we're going to be able to fight everybody tooth and nail, and we're going to win this thing.
We can't wait to see what you do this offseason and what this team looks like in the fall. Mike, if you have an outgoing message for fans, we'd love to hear it. But thank you so much for joining us as always.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Obviously, again, to Monarch Nation, I know that this is not. We wish we were still playing. We wish you guys were still gearing up for whatever's next for us. As we go into this offseason, because of the way college basketball works, there are going to be plenty of changes in our program and changes that we're making to give us the best chance that we can to have the type of season that this program deserves to have. Again, I want to say thank you. Through our frustration and maybe not meeting the mark this year, you guys still rooted for us. You were there. You were present, sometimes pissed off at us because we weren't getting it done, but you were still there. And I do appreciate that. And, as we go through making the tough decisions we have to make, as we put this program back together again, we cannot wait until this summer to get in that gym and be working our rear ends off, one this fall to get back together and start building, what this team will look like. And then when we get in there in November, and we play that first home game at home, or first game at home, and we put a team out on that floor that, we've got to win next year. We've got to put a team out there that will get that done. And that is what our goal is this summer as we put everything together. And we're just asking you to stick with us. And hey, I want to give you guys the championship basketball program that I played in, that you guys deserve to root for. And hey, I'm going to bare knuckles trying to get it done. I appreciate you guys, and go Monarchs.
Go Monarchs.
Go Monarchs.